I mean, at the end of the day, there's always a Sri Lankan auntie with a proposal ready for you.
You can be in your basement playing games all day, Ubering 24/7. You'll still have your aunties to set you up, so you're good. As long as you're a Sudubuta,
You got some goyang.
What? What?
You got some goyang.
So another thing that Dumi wanted us to talk about is abstaining from sex before marriage.
I think Sri Lanka's just a bit more hush-hush about it. But your tagline is, everything is relative, and that's what she said, which died in 2012. Oh God.
Alright, so welcome back to Thinking Hat. This is a new season. This is the second episode of the third season, and we have a familiar face from one of the previous seasons. So Taliya, welcome back.
Thank you.
So what have you been up to? How are things?
It's been a good year, I guess, right? I mean, a lot of things have changed.
Yeah.
We're definitely not the same people we were a year ago.
Yes.
COVID's definitely changed a lot.
You were looking at the TED guy when you said that, has he gained some weight
Yeah.
or something like that?
No.
Sorry, Gio. Anyway, so for today's topic, we actually decided to talk about the whole dating scene in Sri Lanka and also generally in the world, right? I think to start off with, the whole definition of dating itself confuses people, I guess especially
Yeah.
in Sri Lanka.
I mean, what is dating? How would you define it?
Yeah, exactly. So when you ask a person point blank on what the definition is, so when you ask a person point blank about what the definition of dating is, I think no one has like a specific answer in their mind. But I guess if you do ask me like you did, my answer would be, I guess, two people going out, meeting, because I guess that's the broad definition, because it doesn't necessarily have to be over a meal, because
Yeah.
a meal does not define a date, right? But generally that's what you do. You
But
meet
it's
for
a
a
good
meal.
part of the date.
Yes, that's debatable. It's relative, I guess.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. I mean, I guess generally two people meeting up to spend time together, I would define that as a date. And like, so since we are talking about this particular topic, let's talk about some of the problems that are there when it comes to dating, right? Let's talk about the Sri Lankan context. So the problem starts with, like we said, the definition itself.
Yeah.
Right? How would you define dating?
I think I would agree with a lot of what you said, but maybe something more than 3 dates, and maybe the exclusivity aspect should be there. Definitely not just for meals. Like, you hang out 3 times, I guess.
What do you mean by 3 dates? I didn't get you.
Because if I'm gonna go on a date with someone,
Yes.
and then the date doesn't work out, and there's
Yeah.
not gonna be a second date, that doesn't mean we dated.
Yeah, but that date would still be a date, right?
Yeah.
You would call it a date.
But I wouldn't call it seeing each other. Yeah, acquaintance.
Acquaintance, yeah.
Unfortunate acquaintance.
I definitely get that.
Yeah.
But your meeting would still be referred to as a date by definition, right?
I would say
You
we
would-
went on one date. That was it.
Yeah, but
We
one
were
date.
dating.
Yeah, so you went on one date. That's what you call it, right? You wouldn't
Yeah.
say you went on one meeting or you went on one outing or something like that, right? I guess that's the...
Fine.
No, I mean, that's, I guess, the definition. I mean, I can't think of any other definition. I don't know if you guys can. But I get what you mean. But I agree with what you said. Like, okay, so if it's not at least like... So what you meant was like, if it hasn't been at least 3 dates, that first date, if it's only been just one date, you can't officially call it a date.
No.
Hell no.
No.
Interesting. So I guess yeah, so the first problem when it comes to dating is the definition of dating itself.
And we still
And-
can't seem to find middle ground on it. So
Exactly, right? So there we go.
Yeah.
We seem to disagree on what the word dating means. So
Yeah.
there in itself lies a problem, I guess.
how is this going to end?
For me, I think I would personally, like, if I went on a date, I would still, even if that date was extremely awful, I would still refer to it as a date. Like, I wouldn't talk about it as much, but I would, I guess, still call it, okay, maybe I'll call it a bad date or a horrible, extremely disastrous date, but it'll still be a date, I guess. I wouldn't just totally, like, not forget about it. I wouldn't totally call it something else. Like, I wouldn't, like, disregard it, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, but so that's actually the first problem we face, I guess, when it comes to dating. And I guess the second issue that's been brought up is that people don't actually date a lot anymore. According to some stat I just read online in the US, I guess it's only, if you take the total population that's single, it's only 20% of that single population that actually goes out on dates, according to the stat I read online. That might be wrong, might be correct, but
What do the rest of the 80% do?
that's a good question. I guess they're probably occupied with work. Maybe they are.
Maybe it's not like a priority.
Yeah, dating isn't like, I guess, like, when it comes to life, there are certain things, it's not a need, right? It's more of a want.
Yeah, true.
You can, a part of it is, eventually it becomes a need.
The end
right?
goal
The
is
end
a
goal is a
need.
need.
Yeah.
But then, like, going on a date is not a need, it's, I guess, a want. But the end product of it, or like what you actually finally expect from a date, is the need, I guess.
True.
Right?
At the end of the day, there's always a Sri Lankan auntie with a proposal ready for you.
Yes, thank God for Asian countries, you have that option, right? Like,
We have hope.
Yeah, you can be in your basement playing games all day, Ubering 24/7. You'll still have your aunties to set you up, so you're good. You're good to go. You don't have to have like an MBA or a doctorate. You can, as long as you're a Sudubuta,
You got some goyang.
What? What?
You got some goyang.
I didn't hear it. So basically you said that you wouldn't go past the first date if it was that bad. Obviously, I guess
Yeah.
anyone wouldn't. So what are some of the red flags that either you have experienced yourself or you heard of, or like what are some of the red flags that you can mention, like reasons as to why you wouldn't go on a second date?
I'm fortunate enough to have not experienced a lot of these, but I would say maybe how they treat the waiter, the way they speak, that douchebag
The whole douchebag vibe.
vibe. Yeah. That vibe is not second date. Dumi wants us to talk about chivalry.
Right. Do you now?
Am I?
Really?
So do you really think that chivalry is dead, or like how do you see the whole that's like a common saying among women, I guess, now, that chivalry is dead, especially when it comes to dating.
To answer your question, I guess some women do, some women don't, because I think women are a little bit more independent than they used to be when chivalry was a thing. Yeah, because I don't know, is chivalry, like ordering for someone, is that part of chivalry? Like,
Sure.
No. Big no.
I guess yeah, that again is I guess that's that the definition of chivalry is somewhere we kind of might not agree on from person to person, right? The same particular act might be chivalrous to one person, might be offensive to another.
Yes.
So that's it. I guess like everything is relative. It depends on the girl. It depends on the guy as well.
So it's tagline.
Yes,
Everything is relative.
as always. So another thing that Dumi wanted us to talk about is abstaining from sex before marriage, right?
Okay.
So I guess is it more common in Sri Lanka than in like Western countries? Or like I don't know the stats of this, but I guess I don't think there's a big difference. I guess it's the same everywhere.
I think Sri Lanka is just a bit more hush-hush about it.
Yes.
Like,
right.
it's not culturally an accepted topic to talk about,
Yeah.
right? I mean, obviously, like, your parents are not aware of your sexual extracurricular activities as it is in the Western world. And in common sense, I think sex ed should be something that has to be taught to kids
Right.
at a good age around puberty,
Yes.
because that's where this whole thing springs from. That
Yeah, I agree with you completely, but I also think that sex education actually can start from a much young age, but it depends on what you teach the kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, if it's a kid in preschool, you can just simply teach them the difference between the sexes.
yeah,
And
and a good touch and a bad touch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Things like that, right? Exactly, on point. So I guess it can evolve. This sex education can evolve as you grow older,
Progress,
as you
yes.
progress. And like when you hit puberty, I guess it can be more detailed, and it can be, you can actually dive deep into what you shouldn't do and what you should do. And I think, like you mentioned, I think that's something that is definitely lacking in the context of Sri Lankan education.
Yes.
And I guess that has kind of led to so many problems when it comes to dating as well.
Exactly. Like, we're not taught about consent. We're not taught about, like, being safe.
Right.
We're not taught about, what you can do and what you can't do health-wise.
Yes.
And so I think that's why there's so many people who are porn addicts in Sri Lanka.
Right.
There's that whole stigma behind it as well.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean, but then that stigma is arising from a very crucial issue that we're just discussing.
Yeah. I think due to the fact that we don't receive a proper sex education in Sri Lanka and also in, I guess, certain other countries, people tend to look for that education through porn, I guess, right?
Yes.
That's their point of reference, and that can be disastrous, because obviously porn, like any other part of the film industry, is simply a film, right?
Yeah, and
it's fiction,
correct
basically.
me if I'm wrong, it's not accurate.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it's something quite fictional, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very artificial scenario created to give that kind of expectations. I guess that's why chivalry is also
Right. Because the guys you see in porn are like, okay, okay, I'm here, let's do it. That sort of thing.
Yeah. And like the guys in the movies are at the train station with a bunch of flowers. They're like, at the climax of the movie. And so you expect that, and you expect the porn.
But also, let's talk about the opposite end of this whole discussion. Basically, it's okay. So watching porn, men get this very seriously wrong impression about what men should do when it comes to being sexually intimate with their partners, right? That's obvious. Something that I've thought about is the influence that women have about what to expect from men through certain movies, like romantic comedies, or like through romance movies, or even like certain, these Disney stories that they've read since childhood, right?
Yeah.
So obviously every girl grows up with Prince Charming, like,
Prince
right?
Charming,
From a very young age, you
Yeah.
expect a Prince Charming.
True.
I guess a certain way, the guy needs to look a certain way, needs to act a certain way, needs to
Yeah.
speak to you a certain way. Definitely needs to be chivalrous, because Prince Charming always is. That's a defining trait of being Prince Charming. Has to be buff, like you mentioned, definitely. So how do you see the impact of this sort of thing that's gone into the heads of these little girls who grow up with these whole Disney stories? And
I think growing up with that whole Prince Charming culture, then you grow up, you see rom-coms in your teenage years, your preteen years, and then you actually meet a guy who's brought up on cars and video games, I guess it's a bit of a letdown, but it's not fair to either party.
Right. So I
It's
guess
not the guy's fault, nor is it the girl's fault.
yeah, it's
It's just
I
like
guess
persona.
it's a fault of pop culture and like what you grow up with.
Yeah.
Kind of, right? But I don't necessarily blame pop
Yes,
culture either.
That's the thing.
Because we can't, I mean, it's art, right?
Yeah,
we
it's
can't.
created for entertainment,
Exactly,
not
right?
for life advice.
So I guess it comes down to the education that a child gets from the parents on what your expectation should be when it comes to dating.
True.
Right? Because it doesn't matter how many Disney movies you watch, it doesn't matter how many rom-coms you watch,
Yeah.
as long as you're taught by your parents on how to go on a date, how you need to
Yeah.
treat a girl, how you need to treat a guy,
How to be safe.
how to be safe,
Yeah.
all those things, right?
Yeah, true.
But that's a very weird conversation to have with your parents, especially in the Sri Lankan context.
Yes.
But I mean, in any context.
Unfortunately, it is.
Yeah.
But something that I realized very recently is that, like, I don't know if it's common amongst everybody in Sri Lanka, but like when you are getting married, I've noticed that topic itself becomes very casual to talk about. You're engaged, like if you're a bride to be,
All right. Okay.
and then your parents are surprisingly hella open about it. I'm not too sure if
Right.
it's the same in most
Like-
households.
Yes. And I think you have a point.
You know,
They suddenly take an interest in your sex life and how many kids
Yes.
you're going to have and when you're going to have the kids and
yes, and they make jokes about it, and then it's okay to
Yes.
laugh about a boner.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
That sort of
interesting.
culture needs to be there like all year round.
Not just when you get married.
Yes,
Right.
because situations have changed. It's not like a girl attains age, you have a puberty party, and the next day she's married. It's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
There is a good year where you like meet people. I'm not saying that you should be boning every person you see, but that is your choice.
Everything is relative.
Everything is relative, but you have to be safe, and you should be in a safe environment where you can talk to someone about it, and maybe you should have more people around you who you can talk to about it, because if you have like that only one friend who can help you out with the situation, maybe you get an
Right.
STD, maybe you think you're getting an STD, and only one person who can help you out, that's a disaster, because that person's not going to know all the answers.
Yeah. So
And you're too scared to go to a gynecologist. I'm sorry, Figs.
No, yeah. So to that point, I think girls kind of have some sort of an advantage there because I guess girls are more open with their friends about their sex life,
Yes.
whereas guys don't really get into the details.
Yes.
I guess you knew that, right? Probably.
Yeah, you don't get into the details, but you would probably say like tap that.
Exactly.
Do
we
you?
are more casual about it. We would say, we were.
Locker room talk.
I mean, we were with. We would what?
Locker room talk.
Locker room talk, right? Exactly. That's the defining. Yeah, that's what you call
Yeah.
it. So it'll be typical locker room talk where we don't really necessarily go into detail, especially if it's about like someone that we are married to or someone that we really care about. We would never go into detail. We would just say, okay, we met this person, and I don't know. It depends on again. Everything is relative. But
Yeah.
it's very different. My point is, it's going to be very different, drastically different how women discuss sex. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not going to rat my ladies out, and I'm not going to tell you what we talk about.
Maybe you don't have to tell. But am I right or am I wrong?
That's for me to know and for you to never find out.
Yeah, but am I right or am I wrong?
Yes, you're right. We talk about a lot of things. A lot of things.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay.
No, so yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
you.
yeah.
But like we talk about a lot of things, but I don't think we talk about the things that we should be talking about.
Okay, like.
Because I still think that there's let's say you think you have an STD and you don't know, like obviously you're going to have to like Google up the symptoms, and then you're going to self-diagnose yourself that you have cancer down there, but you don't really, those are not things that you talk about.
Right, okay.
And like if you go to a gynecologist's office, if you go to a hospital and you sit there outside a gyno's room, you get a lot of stares. Because you're
Right.
seated there, everybody else is there with their significant other.
Coming to this particular topic that I've always been curious about, and I've always been on both sides of the fences when it comes to this particular topic. Being pro-choice and pro-life, right? How do you see this? Like, I know it's a very sensitive topic to talk about, right? And because I myself have studied this for a long time and I've heard various opinions, right? And I still haven't decided which side of the fence I'm on, right?
What I don't understand is, oh my God, we're gonna get a lot of hate for this.
I mean, we
I am pro-choice.
Yeah.
I am pro-choice.
Yeah.
However, I don't think it's fair to.
No, you
I
can,
don't
you can,
think
yeah.
I don't think it's fair to say.
Like, so does that mean that you define a person who is alive by someone who has a heartbeat, or because that's very tricky, isn't it? Like, you can't really define at what point a child is a child, or at what point life becomes life. So, like, that's why I've never really given my opinion on this particular topic. It's very tricky. It's very sensitive.
Yes.
But I'm glad that you brought it up.
You brought it up.
I'm glad that you mentioned that you are pro-choice, right? And because a lot of people are afraid to say out loud what side of the fence they're on, right? So yeah.
I mean, do you have plants at home, Sri?
Yes.
Do you water them? Okay, you keep them in a sunny place to keep them alive.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to just chop it off unless you, don't need it.
Right.
So it is a living being, and it is something you actively dedicate a part of your life to keeping alive.
Right. Okay.
So, and you made a choice to bring the plant into your life. I'm not saying that it is the same situation with everybody else.
Yeah.
There's rape, there is unwanted pregnancies, and that is an option that women need to have.
Sure.
But in an instance where two consensual adults made the decision to engage in sexual activity and maybe weren't wearing protection, and this was a repercussion of it, they should have a choice to decide whether they want to or not. Personally, I feel even if it is a fetus in your stomach, it has a heartbeat, it's a living being. So it isn't as simple as, it's my body, I want to decide what happens.
Right. So wait, I'm confused. So isn't that being pro-life? Right?
It's pro-choice.
So you're saying you're okay with abortion at any point, or?
I'm saying I'm okay with abortion if it is resulted from a rape, or if it is resulted from, or if the abortion is necessary for the mother's health or for the child's health.
Okay. Right.
Like that. But the fact that you just want to have an abortion is a matter of choice.
Clear.
Personally, I think anything with a heartbeat, anything that's a living being, should be thought about twice.
Right. I think I too share a very similar sentiment, because that's one of the reasons that I haven't really been able to decide like which side I'm on. What are the things you said?
Chivalry is not dead; it's evolved. Expectations are not the same.
Yes.
For two people, so it's not fair where you can't date a tom girl and then you can't date a girly girl and then expect the same way to behave around her. So it's not fair to bring that up either. And I guess sex education should be something that should be more openly spoken about, so that people are more comfortable and more educated. I think it would reduce a lot of crime, first of all.
Okay.
And it would make life a lot easier, because people need to be comfortable talking about anything they are doing or not doing.
All right. Cool. I guess there's so much we can talk on this topic, but I guess it's time to wrap up.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Taliya, for joining us. Time for Taliya to Uber it now. So thank you so much for joining us, guys. So you guys might actually agree with some of the topics we talk about. You might completely disagree. So just drop in the comments with whatever you guys think, and don't forget to like and subscribe the channel as well, as Dumi always reminds me to say. So yeah, cool. See you guys in the next episode.